Today on Catherine Learns Stuff, I'm going to walk you through how to make this wall Christmas tree countdown calendar. So let's jump in. So every year after Halloween, I grab a bunch of candy for my kids and I plan to use them in their countdown calendars. So since I've got 3 kids, I have to sort of take a picture of the candies that go into each day so that they all get the same candy on each day. And this also helps to reduce the load of candy that they eat right after Halloween. So what I like to do is organize them and put numbers onto each one so that I know where they go, and then I can start to fill up the treat spots in the calendars. Alright, so they each have numbers and I'm going to take a picture of them so I've got this on file, and then they are going to be placed into the candy slots. So I'm just going to switch it up a little bit from the way that I normally do it because this project takes several different steps. So I quickly wanted to go over with you the supplies that I'm using to make the Christmas bulbs. So I just got some 12 by 12 cardstock that I picked up at the dollar store. And for the bulbs itself, I'm going to need 8 sheets of cardstock. So I'm just going to take sort of the top 8 pages from my cardstock package and then throw them through my Cricut. So I'm quickly going to walk you through how to use the bulb file in Cricut Design Space so that you can maximize your cut space on your paper. So let's jump over to our computers for that. So I want to quickly walk you through how to use the Christmas bulb file that we have for this project. So I've left a link below in the description of this video on how to access a free copy of my Christmas bulb. So all you want to do in Cricut Design Space is hit the upload button, and then you're going to click and drag the file over into your upload canvas. You're going to add the file to your canvas, and we're going to view our canvas. So when you pull this file into Cricut Design Space, depending on what update Cricut has recently done, this file is going to be either really big or really small. So what we want to do is you want to make sure that we have our lock dimensions is locked so that our proportions stay the same, so that it stays as a ball. And we want to change the width from whatever you have to 6 inches. So at 6 inches, this is going to be a good size to make a ball that fits Halloween candy sized treats inside. Before you print off 1,000 of these for your calendar, I recommend you print one off only and then see how well it shapes and sizes to what you're going to put inside of it. Now, I'm doing a countdown calendar that has 24 pieces because on the 25th day, which is Christmas Day, we don't actually open the calendar. We are already celebrating Christmas, so we only do 24. But either way, you're going to need to duplicate this enough times to have 24 of these or 25 of these, depending on how you're going to do it. But the one thing I want to show you quickly is what I've been doing, because Cricut's been a little bit tricky when I've been cutting things out. Typically it's been crashing on like page 3 or whatever, and then I have to redo all of my spacing. What I'm going to do is I'm only going to duplicate 3 copies of this, because at 6 inches in width I can only fit 3 of these on a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to add quickly a shape here, and I'm going to add in a square. And I'm going to change this square to be 11.5 by 11.5 because that's as big as Cricut will let me cut out on my 12 by 12 mat. I'm going to actually place this, rearrange this to the back so it stays at the back. I'm going to actually place my Christmas bulbs on this sheet so that I can, whoops, that's not what I wanted, rotate here, so that I can have 3 of them on my sheet nicely without having to rearrange them every time, or all 24 on my cutting mat, because that takes up a lot more time and a lot more effort. And like I said, for me recently, Cricut's been crashing after I've rearranged everything on my mats, so it's a little bit of a nuisance. So I'm going to move this one over just a smidgen here so that's within my 11 by 11. And now this space here that I've got, I'm going to be able to save this little piece of cardstock at least, and the rest is going to be trash. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this square now that I had, and I'm going to delete it. I'm going to select my 3 pieces that I've got, and I'm going to attach them. Now you can either duplicate this to have 24 pieces, or we can simply select make, and we're not going to save this. And over here in project copies, you can increase this to have 8 sheets, which will give you 24 pieces of these bulbs. And so this will just cut out 8 pieces of this exact same sheet so that you don't need to cut out or make more copies on your canvas. And for me, I found that this helps me not have Cricut crash as often as it's been with when I'm doing just the one, when I'm doing 24 pieces individually. So I'm going to click continue, and I'm just going to cut this out with a regular cardstock setting, and then I will meet you back at my workstation. So now I've got 24 of these cut out, and there's 3 in sort of each color. And if you followed through on my design on how to maximize the space on your 12 by 12, you should have a stack of leftover bits. And this is sort of the corner piece. If you want to, I've left a link below to another video on what you can do with this scrap paper so that it doesn't totally go to waste. So just keep that in mind. That's down at the bottom of in the descriptions below. So my glue gun is currently heating up for this. I recommend using your glue gun when making these bulbs just because the glue dries a little bit faster and we have a lot of these to get through. So you don't need to fold anything, but I'm just going to give you an idea. We're going to glue only on one side each so that they can sort of fall into each other like this. So I'm going to show you a video of how I do it, but we're not going to do all 24 together. I'm just going to show you, and then we can jump over to our next steps after that. Okay, so now that my glue gun is hot, I'm going to quickly just demonstrate one time how to assemble these because this is a little bit tricky to record. And I'm just going to put glue on the side right there, and then I'm going to fold this piece up onto it like that and hold it there. I'm using hot glue, it will dry pretty quickly. And then once this is dry enough, I'm going to then do the next piece. So bear with me as I do bad camera angles here, because this isn't always the easiest thing to demonstrate. And I'm just going to continue around the whole side of my bulb here. Now for the last one, I'm going to put glue, oops, hold that shut. For the last one, I'm going to put glue on this side and in here as well. So it's a little bit hard. So one here and here. So this is going to be sort of a 2 at once, and it's a little bit harder to do. We're going to try not to burn ourselves. Sorry, I don't have a great camera angle. And we're gonna squish this together like so and not burn ourselves. Okay, so that's how we do one of these. So we've got 24 of these to do. Don't close the lid until the very end, like until after we've filled it with candy, because we still need to put something in there, right? So don't trick yourself into getting these closed up too soon. So that's gonna happen later. So I'm gonna quickly do all 24 of these, and then we'll meet up in a moment again. For the numbers that I'm going to use on this calendar, I've designed some numbers that you can get access to on my website through my resource library. I've left a link for that below in the description, but all you're going to need is a piece of paper. You can use an 8.5 by 11. I'm just using a scrap piece because I don't need very much, and just a pen to use with my Cricut. If you don't have a Cricut pen or marker, I've left a link below as well, so you can read about on some tips and tricks on how to use other non-Cricut brand markers with your Cricut. So I'm going to quickly walk you through how to modify the file so that it fits the Christmas bulbs that we've got, and then we will cut this out on our Cricuts. The next file that we want to upload is we want to pull in our numbers. So I've got the Christmas numbers. This is the numbers that come with this file, and what we simply need to do is, again, we're going to import this into our Cricut Design Space. You'll notice that this is teeny tiny when it comes into Cricut Design Space. We want to make sure that when again, we're going to change the dimensions on this. We're going to make sure that our lock is locked, and we're going to change this to 4.5 inches in height. This will give us a good size for each of these items. So we're going to select ungroup over here, and we're going to just do a double check here. So you'll notice that the height of each of the bows is going to be about 0.93, the stars is going to be 1, and the bulbs is going to be 0.1. This is a good size. Now the one thing I want to point out though is these numbers right now are set to basic cut, and we want to change these into a draw, because we're going to be drawing them with our Cricut. So you can either do select one by one, go select in your operations menu and change this to pen, and that will be that. Or you can go on your side here and hold each number down while holding the control key down on your keyboard and selecting the numbers and scrolling through all of these and then changing them as a group to, bear with me here, I'm going to change these all to from basic cut to pen. So now this is all going to be penned in, but what you have to realize is they're still not together. So if I move that, it's going to go away from it. So I want to do each piece individually. I'm going to select the two items and then I'm going to attach them. Once they're all attached, then it is okay to send this to cut. So I can either select the whole grouping and attach them, or I can do it individually this way from on my canvas. Once those are all done, we can send that to our Cricut to cut them out, and make sure that you've got your pen in your pen holder. If you do not have a Cricut pen or marker, don't worry, I've got you covered. I have a link in the description below of a post that I've made where I go through how to use different pens on your Cricut that are not Cricut pens to help you get through that. So I've got my candies all numbered, I've got my numbers printed off, and I've got all of my bulbs cut and glued. So the next thing that we have to do is we get to wrap our candies, put them into our bulbs. Now I like to put them into some tissue paper just so that if you have little prying eyes, they're not going to look through these holes, and that way it's a little bit easier to keep it all sort of closed off from them. And you don't need a big piece of tissue paper, just the little square is fine. So I'm going to pre-slice some of this with my paper cutter. And it's just enough to wrap it around the candy so that you don't see what it is. And when I've got this sort of activity happening, I'm going to be wrapping the candy, putting it into the bulb, and right away putting the number on it, because these are all numbered accordingly to make sure that my kids don't get different candies on different days. So assuming the numbers stayed the way that they're supposed to, we should be good to go. So I'm going to quickly cut some pieces of tissue paper, and then we will do some assembly together, and then we'll fast forward through the rest. All right, so we're going to start assembling this, and I'm just going to quickly grab a piece of tissue paper here, wrap my little candy in it. I got to make sure I've got number 3 ready next. I'm going to shove this in here so that nobody sees it. I'm going to glue this down. But before I do that, I need to make sure I find number 3. I like to get my numbers attached here so that I don't lose them, because I'm good at losing stuff. Okay, so my candy is ready to be put in here. My glue gun is hot, so I'm just going to quickly glue the top here. To keep this in place. And then I'm going to put the number 3 sort of on the bottom here. And then I've got number 3 done. So I'm going to do all of these. I've got 24 to do. And you just want to hold this shut a little bit to make sure it shuts, because sometimes the candies like to stick out even though the boxes are big enough. And so we're going to do the rest of these, and we will go from there. So now that all of my bulbs are done, they all have their numbers on them, I'm going to quickly glue on a little piece of ribbon on top and a little hook. I've got a bunch of these little Christmas ornament hooks. And so I'm going to sort of just flatten it out a little bit so that I can hook it onto here. And we're just going to glue these on so that I can hang these up. So bear with me as I make a mess out of this. And we're just gluing these on because I can't, with ribbon, because I can't actually glue on the hook by itself. So that's a really bad first one, but they'll get better as they go. And we just want to make sure that this is loose. And once my glue is dry, I'm going to loop the hook around a little bit more so that it doesn't poke anybody or fall off. So now that all these are dry, I'm just going to wrap the loop around so that it's not a big spiky poke coming out, and then I'm going to hang these up on my tree on the wall. So let's move over to our tree and we'll get that started. So to make our tree, what we're going to need is we're going to need some command strips. I like the 3M ones. You're going to need some hooks. You'll need about 11 or 12 of these. I've 3D printed these ones off because I use them a lot, and I left the link for the file for these specific ones in the description below. You'll need some painter's tape, or you can use regular tape. I like this stuff because it doesn't peel the paint off of my walls. And we're going to need some tinsel. I'm using gold tinsel because I can't find my green stuff. I used to have a lot of it, but I guess the kids put it somewhere and I can't find it. So this year we're doing gold, but you can use green or rainbow colored or whatever you would like. Okay, so let's jump over to our wall and start putting this tree together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got my 3M clips, and I'm going to just attach one onto the wall here, sort of at the center point of my where my Christmas tree is going to go. And I'm going to put it kind of right there. And I'm going to put this clip on here. And before I'm going to make sure this sticks on here for 30 seconds, so bear with me. And I just want to make sure that I'm making a triangle, so I'm going to use some gravity here. And my tree is centered right here. I'm going to do about 2 feet off of each side. And so for now, I'm just going to put a little piece of tape on the ground so I know where I'm aiming for. 1.5 feet here, and 1.5 feet here, because I don't want this to be crazy. Okay. And now I'm going to take that off so it doesn't fall down. And you can use ribbon or tape. I'm just going to use a big long piece of green tape so I can take it off later. That's why I know the size of my tree. Don't worry, I'll reuse this tape for something different later. I'll use lots of this stuff. Alright, so that's going to be the size of our tree. And next what we're going to do is we're going to strategically place hooks on different sides of the tree here so that it can stay up. Now, we want to make sure that we're not going on the tape, we're just going inside the tape. Alright, now those I'll have to wait for about half an hour before I can attach the next plates. Okay, so now that my clips have been sitting for a while, I can take off my green tape and I can start to attach my tinsel. Okay, so I'm going to use gold tinsel as my tree, just to change things up since I couldn't find any green that I had somewhere. And the first thing that I want to do with my tinsel is I want to tie a little bit of a knot at the top so that I can actually hold on to my clip here, because otherwise it's going to fall off. And when I've got these hook ones, I actually need to sort of loop around so that it stays in place and doesn't fall off, just like that. And that way it will keep it on that level. On these other ones that are a bit better hooks, you don't need to loop it around as much because they will actually stay in place. And we're just pulling our ribbon, our tinsel through, and then that's the end of our tree. And at the end here, I have a lot of this stuff. So I'm just gonna snip a little bit off and tie it into a knot so that it stays put. And that's our tree. Now I've got all my bulbs ready, and I'm just going to hang these on like a Christmas tree. Ideally you want the fronts hanging forwards with the numbers, but you don't need to. Our tree is done. I don't have any fancy stars or anything, but I do want some sort of a star on top. So I'm just going to put a little ribbon on top. And there it is, all complete. So I quickly wanted to go over a few things that I learned while making this craft. The first thing was that I needed a lot more clips than I had anticipated. I initially thought that 7 or 8 would do. At the end, I ended up using 12 because I needed my clips to be closer together, especially at the top of the tree. So in the video, you'll notice that at one point I go from a few clips and then all of a sudden in the next image, there's a lot of clips. That's because in my test runs, I realized that I needed a lot more clips to make the tree have an actual tree shape instead of some sort of wonky look. The next thing that I wanted to go over is when I was making this tree, I started off the tree as a triangle with the very first clip at the top of the triangle. After I put the tinsel on it, that top clip kind of made it look weird. So what I did is I removed the top clip and had my tree actually start off at the side of the triangle instead of the tip of the triangle. And there you have it. Your wall-mounted Christmas tree is complete. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this craft. If you've tried making this countdown calendar, let me know how it turned out. Don't forget to leave a comment below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.